Then Tanner. So let's see how this goes. Okay, Diana
Hello.
and Tanner. Hi, how are we doing?
Good.
Well, welcome to the Instagram Live. I'm so excited. This is like the first of so much for me. Like, never had a North Carolina wine, never had three people on an Instagram Live. So I'm excited. So welcome.
Thank you. It's a first for me too. I've never done an Instagram live.
Oh, all right, all right. How about you, Tanner? You done these before?
I'd never done it either. I just tested the feature today to see how
Oh,
it, that was all just for a second.
yeah. We kind of froze for a little bit. I have really bad weather here, so it's raining. So I'm sure it's on my end that we're a little lag, but hopefully it won't be too bad. So I'm so excited. Here we go. We have your Cabernet Franc. It is a 2017 and it is a state. So my first question is there a lot of Cab Franc grown in North Carolina?
There's a fair amount. Tanner, do you have details?
Yeah, I mean, Cab Franc, it's really popular on the East Coast with growers all the way from
Mhm.
down in Georgia to New York State. Um, it tends to thrive out here, and people are able to make a lot of regions kind of decided that it might be the grape of their region, at least for reds. Like I used to work in Maryland, we grew a lot of Cab Franc up there, and it's the state grape or state red grape up there. It seems like New York State really has gotten
Right.
behind Franc. And then in North Carolina, yeah, a lot of our neighbors are growing it as well, just because it really it ripens the way that you would want. And versus some varieties like Cab Sauv is a little bit tougher for us to ripen out here, so Cab Franc is generally planted at least in a greater proportion.
Okay. So for those who are watching who may not know, Cab Franc is an earlier ripener than Cabernet Sauvignon. So for like California, it's kind of like a 3 week kind of earlier. Is that about similar there?
Yeah, that's about right. It just depends year to year. Every year is going to be a little different, but this year that was pretty much spot on. We pulled our Cab Franc 3 weeks before the Cab Sav.
Okay. And how much Cab Franc do you produce?
So we have, I think, I forget exactly, but about 5.5 acres.
It's our
And
large planting now.
yeah,
Oh, I love hearing that.
yeah, the whole thing is just a big rolling hill, basically. It's just one big hill just dedicated to Cab Franc. And yeah, so about 5.5 acres. It crops somewhere around, like, it just depends year to year, but we usually go around maybe 3 tons per acre. So yeah, we get quite a bit. We have to use the larger tanks for our Cab Franc for sure.
And so let's go back a little bit and tell me a little bit of the history of North Carolina, like where you are in relation to the other states that, are around you. Like, how does somebody get to you?
Well, in terms of physical locality, we are about an hour and a half or so from Charlotte. So straight
Okay.
north and very close to Virginia. And we're on the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. So we have some really nice elevation, get a lot of wind flow. I mean, it's a really beautiful site to grow grapes up here. In terms of the industry in North Carolina, it's a pretty old industry, believe it or not. Different types of grapes, but it's a pretty old industry. And so this part of the industry, the vinifera hybrid part, is newer, you know. So we are developing as a wine region now. We have 6 AVAs, which I'm sure to you seems like so small, but it's a big deal for North Carolina.
Well, it's a matter of the time, and it's not easy to make an AVA.
No.
So, there may be very much distinct differences between other regions around you, but I don't know too many people who really want to go through that work either. I mean, it's
Right.
like years and years of of writing documentation and, oh, regulating, oh, the wind blows in this direction and the rain goes in this direction
Right.
and, the birds that fly. Right? So, but six, I mean, six is good. It's, it at least is showing that there's some differentiation between these regions. And so, what is your what is your total case production?
So it depends on yield, but in general, we average about 5,000 cases per year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're for North Carolina, we're on the definitely the larger side, probably the largest. Well, the largest winery on the East Coast is in North Carolina at like 600,000 cases, but they specialize in Scuppernong and Muscadine wine, so that's a little different than
Right.
that's a but most of our neighbors, some of the larger ones might do 20 or 30,000 cases. And then we're, at 5,000, we're still, most of our neighbors are doing maybe 1,000 cases or less. So we're a larger winery, but I know compared to California, our big itty bitty thing.
Yeah, yeah, that classify. I think that still classifies as a small winery,
Yes.
But so how the name of the winery is Jones von Drehle. Am I saying the
You,
last part correctly? All right. And so, Diana, your last name is Jones. So I went out on a limb and guessed that that's where it's coming from. But where's the rest of the von Drehle coming from? Where does the name come from?
so that's my sister and her husband. So it's a
Oh, okay.
family-owned winery. Yeah.
Oh, and how long have you been producing wine?
Well, we found this location in 2007. Our first harvest was, I mean, it was pasture land with cows on it at that point. So we've done everything. And our first harvest was 2012.
Okay. And what possessed you to go into this wonderful world of wine?
We definitely have the crazy gene, that's for sure. I don't know, Chuck and
Uh-oh.
Uh, I love.
the
Oh,
mid 80s through, and he was building a wireless system through California in the early days of wireless, and really just got to love the industry and everything about it. And we moved to Roswell, Georgia. He started his own company. We planted a small hobby vineyard, made hobby wine, and here we are. So I always tell people, be careful where your hobbies lead you.
absolutely. There are a lot of wineries out there that started in their garage, and
Yep.
you know, you get you get this little voice in your head say, "Oh, I can make it in my garage, and all of my friends like it, so I can do this." And and then before you know it, you're down that rabbit hole, and you're like, "Okay, this is awesome, but this is a lot of work."
Oh, it's a tremendous amount of work. I mean, I have a lot of people say to me, when I retire, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, well, take that word out of your vocabulary then. But I don't know. There's just something really special about this industry. I mean, it's just so wonderful to see it bring people together. It happens. Rarely do you sit down as an individual and drink an entire bottle of wine. It's always shared with somebody.
Yeah.
And, we hold food and wine events here where we bring chefs in from around the state, and we'll see four couples who don't know each other sit down at a table. And at the end of the event, they're exchanging contact information. It's just a really, really interesting, you know, really interesting endeavor. And especially in North Carolina, to be a part of something that is relatively young and growing. And I mean, it has a huge economic impact to our state, this industry. So it's pretty cool.
And in 2012, when you made your first vintage, how many cases approximately did you make back then?
Oh, it was a big bottling because we used all of it was probably Tanner, 6,000 cases maybe at that point. Uh,
Yeah, that was a huge 12. Like I was still in college when 12 happened, but they harvested a tremendous amount of fruit that year, well
yeah,
over a tons. And
got a
so most
tons
of
of,
it probably
yeah,
would have 1,000 plus cases.
right.
Wow. And so, Tim, you've been with Jones von Drehle the entire time?
No, I've worked at
Yeah.
Jones von Drehle since 2019 was when I came.
Oh, okay.
We
Okay.
when we started, our initial winemaker who is our director of wine now, came from Sonoma. Had been in the industry for a long time, but he came to the East Coast. He wanted to buy a farm, found a farm in Floyd, Virginia, and was working at a neighboring winery. Heard about these crazy people, walked in, planted a 30-acre, going to be an estate winery, and he came by and took a look and said, you know, I'm going to send him my resume. And Chuck took one look and went, let's talk. So came in 19, and you know, he has different terroir experience, different schooling. He went to a school here in North Carolina, App State, who has a fermentation science program. Dan went to school out at Davis. But Tanner's worked in New Zealand and Maryland and other places. So it's been a really nice transition for us. So Tanner is our winemaker now.
And so New Zealand to North Carolina, Tanner, similarities, differences?
It's quite a bit different. Where I was in New Zealand was the top end of the South Island or north end of the South Island. So you can literally grow anything there. I mean, they're growing kiwis and beer hops like Nelson, Mataweka hops. And then, yeah, for the grapes, they could grow Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, you know, everything. For us in North Carolina, it's just some varieties just don't really have the time frame for ripening that we'd like. And we just have a little more pressure from, you know, just humidity and heat and stuff. So a lot of thinner skin varieties, they just don't thrive for us. Like we have very, very small accidental planting of Sauvignon Blanc. And, you know, most of the time we just have to kind of, you know, bundle it into something else. We'll just pick it and, you know, let it go in the field. Like it's just a drop in the bucket in a larger lot. Something I found interesting, 19 was an excellent year that we had in North Carolina. And I came in and I sampled the Sauvignon Blanc, and the chemistry, at least, on the Sauvignon Blanc that we had in 19. That Sauvignon Blanc was prettier than what I got to see at where I was in New Zealand, but that was just because, you know, it was the best Sauvignon Blanc we were probably going to get to see. And then when New Zealand, it was a little bit more like bulk, like really big, you know, farming, a big operation coming in. They grow, don't get me wrong, I love New Zealand Savvy, but no, it's a lot different. But, you know, sometimes it just depends. Every year is very, very different for us. There's just so many variables. So sometimes things really shine, and then sometimes it's just a little more challenging.
And I mean, I think the biggest thing about Cab Franc, or actually any grape variety there is really the fact that you have to know what you can plant. You have to be aware of your soils and your environment. Now, you mentioned about the humidity and things like that, you know, talking about what grapes grow well there. That's the thing. And I think that in a lot of places that Cab Franc grows, that you get where it's not able to ripen to its fullest potential, they're not really letting Cab Franc do what it would like to do. And so I poured your Cab Franc again. Here's the label again, and I poured yours, and it is it never works on Instagram, but it is a pale ruby. It's translucent. I can read through it, but the aromas are like out of this world. So there's beautiful violet in here, and that to me is a nice little trigger point for Cab Franc. I love violets in Cab Franc. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of, and it probably has to do that I don't do geography very well, but I kind of thought there would be bell pepper like all over the place. And there's not. It's definitely ripened to its fullness, and it's beautiful red fruit. It's nice and bright and acidic. It's a lovely wine.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, we love to hear that. Those are all, the bell pepper is the one. I've, you know, just working with Cab Franc over on the East Coast, had batches where, it was, yeah, the bell pepper was just very prominent. And we're like, well, this isn't quite what we wanted. And there's a lot of, yeah, if you want, I can go into detail about just some of what it is to avoid that. Because, Cab Franc for us, that we have rich soil here. Like you can grow a squash or zucchini that'll feed a whole family for the summer out here. Franc, especially, it's the most vigorous vine in the vineyard. And if you control that vigor and, have cut down to fewer buds, hedge more frequently. We might have to hedge 2 or 3 times on Cab Franc. And
Fully.
yeah, pulling leaves and all that stuff. At least I had a consultant one time explain to me that he believed that when the vine has too much excess like vegetal growth, it's like it can almost like just it impacts the fruit, and then the fruit is more veggie. And I don't know if that's the mechanism or not, but it's definitely, it starts in the vineyard to control it. And then in the cellar, it's pretty, the winemaking that we have, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple, but I do think it helps that our Cab Franc, it was aged in barrel for about 3 years, maybe a little more. I'm trying to think exactly.
40 months on this one.
Yeah, so that aging process, if there is, some fresher, more vegetal aromas, I feel like a lot of times those tend to sort of just, I don't know, transform or integrate into something else. Really get a whole lot of that. It seems like even the wines, because 17 was a good year. It wasn't the best year, but it's a pretty good year. And some of the years that we worry about that fresh vegetal characteristic a little more, it seems like even once you age about a year or two out, then you're like, okay, well, yeah, this isn't anything like it was when it first came when it came on the crush pad, and it was.
Right. So is this your current vintage that you're selling, the 2017?
It is.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We're
Okay.
aged
So
all of
so
our.
yeah, so I think you're right, Tanner, because a lot of the other regions are pumping it out a lot sooner. So you're on the 2017, and I've actually seen 2021 already out in some areas. And I agree with you that vegetal um, aromatics and on the palate, they kind of start to break down if you give them time in the barrel to kind of dissipate out. And absolutely the trimming of the leaves, all of that, the way I've always explained it, my biology degrees to people, how I explained it is there's only X amount of energy in this grape, right? In this grapevine. And it's the vineyard manager's job to make sure that that's an equal balance, because Cab Franc, unfortunately, like does things reverse. It likes to give a lot of leaves. It likes to give a lot of leaves, and then it expends all of that energy to get those leaves out, because that's where it's getting the chlorophyll, that's where it's getting its energy from. And then it kind of uses all of its energy in those leaves, and then doesn't have enough energy to, to do the grape. So it panics, and then it starts shooting out all these grape bunches, and then there's definitely not enough energy. So by cutting back the green drops and doing the leaves things, you're helping the vineyard manager or owner, whatever, is making sure that the energy is balanced. And I think that's one of the biggest things in some of these regions, that the vegetal is so high, is that there's not so much care going into that balance. And this, it I love it. I actually really I really really love it. It is a lighter Cab Franc. But it, to me, it tastes like a Cab Franc. It's a quality wine. There's definitely, no faults in it. It's got everything that a Cab Franc wants to be. It's just a little bit on the lighter side, and that could be this vintage, right?
Well, it's also, I mean, we're totally different environment, obviously, than California. We're considered a cold climate. And so, we're not going to get those heavy, I mean, Petit Verdot is one that definitely gives us some of that, but we're not going to get those higher alcohol, you know, big jammy kind of wines. So, yeah, I saw a question, a comment down here. What are your thoughts on 100% Cab Franc versus blending
Oh,
some? I mean, we just think it's a wonderful wine by itself. I mean, it is our top seller in restaurants in North Carolina.
I can believe that. And I by no means meant it as like a bad thing that it's a lighter cab. It's what it, you know, it's a wonderful option. Not everybody wants that big, bold, in your face fruit, just like not everybody wants that bell pepper. Not everybody want, you know, so there's different palates. And I'm used to California Cab Franc. And sometimes I don't want a California Cab Franc. I want a quality wine that's a little bit lighter, that's a little bit less in alcohol, which I don't know. Oh, I don't have my glasses
13.3.
on. So it's a lower alcohol wine. It is something that so many people can enjoy across a whole bunch of different food dynamics.
Well, that's one of our philosophies here. We think wine and food go together, you know, and we like wines that pair well with food. And our wines have, you know, nice acid and they're balanced and they don't fight the food. So chefs around the state have really embraced that.
Right. Now, if somebody comes to your tasting room and or comes to taste your wine and they have never heard of Cab Franc before, which happens so frequently, how would you describe Cab Franc to a Cab Franc newbie?
Well, that doesn't happen very often. I mean, so many wineries that, you know, Cab Franc is one of the parent grapes of Cabernet Sauvignon. It's not as heavy. You know, it's a more feminine version of it. It has really nice fruit to it. It pairs beautifully with food. You know, we talk about its origination, where it comes from, what it's used for in other places. Um, so we don't compare it to another wine or to another varietal. It is what it is, you know.
Excellent. And so now you actually use the, I got all geeky when I read this, that you have three French clones that are making up this Cab Franc. So what are the clones? Why did you choose those clones? Are they, you know, are they planted all together? Are they in different areas on your vineyard site?
Um, they, I mean, they have their own rows. It's not like they're interspersed within the rows. But when Chuck, my husband, our managing partner, was you know, deciding what would grow well here, he picked clones that he thought would work well with the future wine. That was what we were looking for, and that would grow well here. So, so yeah, we have 214, 327, and 623.
Okay. And
Yeah.
can you, Tanner, can you kind of give a little background on like what each one does for this wine?
Um, well, we also have a couple different rootstocks in there. Um, each one performs a little bit differently. To be honest, I'm not. Chuck has explained to me before, you know, the reasoning that he picked them, and because I blend them all together in a field blend, they all go in the same tank.
Oh, okay.
Differences. So my favorite, personally, it might have to do with being at the top of the hill. I think it works a little better. Is the 623 is kind of what I prefer, but I also like the 327, and then the 214 um, for us is just, it just doesn't seem to produce as much fruit. But yeah, each component. So yeah, a little embarrassed offhand. I don't know which ones, because there's one that's supposed to be more for color, and then others to contribute aroma, but they're all slightly different. And even we have a variance of rootstocks in there too. Try to kind of, play to the lay of the land a little bit. Like when you're further down the hill, you might have a rootstock that doesn't take up quite as much water. So it can kind of, hinder your vigor a little bit because, yeah, the further down the hill or the more in a gully you are, the more that you're going to get that water uptake and you're going to get what we call bull canes, big canes and just greater growth. But yeah, essentially one of the clones is for color, another one is for flavor, and another one for own little.
You make field blends. Okay. So so for those that don't know what a field blend is, Tanner, you want to just explain what a field blend is?
Oh yeah, I mean it's all Cab Franc, but because it's three different clones, we generally pick all of them on the same day or a day or two, and I'll ferment them into the same tank, just because, yeah, during harvest we're filling up our tanks. I can't have three different Cab Francs going all at once to keep the three blends separate. And I think that just mixing them together, like with any blend, if I'm blending different varietals, then I want to blend them a little bit earlier in the lifespan so that they have time to integrate. It's just like, with cooking or anything. It's better if these things are blended early.
So what is both of yours favorite pairing with your Cab Franc?
Well, North Carolina is pretty popular for barbecue and just, I mean, literally pork of any kind goes so well with this Cab Franc. So a pulled pork, done on the big green egg and put it with a glass of Cab Franc. It's really good.
The big green egg. I love it. I've never actually seen one of those in real life, but I see them in commercials and and I'm like, wait, it's a great name. It's a big green egg. I think guess that's like equivalent to like the Traeger in
Yes.
you know in
Yes.
different regions, right?
Yeah.
Ashley. So Tanner, what do you think? What's your favorite?
Oh, I'm sorry, there was a dog getting up on the counter. So
Oh,
my offhand, I had mine the other day with Thanksgiving. I had some Cab Franc, and I really liked it. I liked it with the turkey and the cranberry sauce. I thought, our Cab Franc doesn't really have cranberry, but I just thought it worked well with that. Um, yeah, with Cab Franc, it's one that, yeah, I'll pair it with, chickens and porks actually a little bit more. It's not my go-to steak wine that we carry, but because it's just a little more refreshing of a red than some of our others. So
yeah, definitely on the Thanksgiving table. I agree. I don't get cranberry on here, but I do get raspberry.
yeah,
It's fresh red. It's fresh red fruit. It's not that tart red fruit.
yeah.
But it can go with the cranberry on the table.
I have seen examples in North Carolina that were clearly like a cranberry finish, and I've seen examples that exhibited more blueberry. But yeah, I think ours kind of lies more toward the red fruit.
And then going backwards, a question I should have asked earlier is in your AVA, the Yadkin Valley AVA, you had mentioned that you have to deal with humidity and stuff. How much like rainfall do you get, and what is the typical soil that's found in your vineyard?
Well, I don't think there's any typical rainfall in North Carolina. It's just so different from year to year and from place to place. The Yadkin Valley AVA is really large, probably larger than an AVA should be because it goes from where we are, which is the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, with a lot of rock in this soil, a lot of granite, quartz, schist, fractured rock, and it goes clear down to almost Charlotte. And so huge geographical area, but it was the first one in North Carolina, and I think it just got put together, kind of lumped together. So, but our site is, I mean, it has we're 10 minutes from a huge mountain called Stone Mountain State Park. It's a huge granite outcropping. And like I said, we're right on the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. So we have rock throughout this vineyard. It's Fairview, sandy loam clay soil. But it drains extremely well. And I think one of our major assets here is just the wind that comes off the mountain is tremendous for us. So it's a huge benefit both in the summer and the winter for us.
Is
Yeah,
that wind gentle or is it like
Well, it can
Texas wind?
yeah. The to answer about
be robust at times. Go ahead, Tanner.
yeah, I was just gonna say rainfall for us, yeah, it varies a lot, especially now or lately more than ever. It seems like we have a really dry year, a really wet year, but you can expect the rain on the low end to be around 40 inches, maybe a little less, and on the high end for a really wet year, it'd be 70 plus inches.
That
So rain,
2018. Yeah.
but yeah, and I think 2020 was even broke. I don't know, they were close. Those were both very wet years, but the good thing is, yeah, we even have French drains installed on part of our vineyard, so that helps with drainage through some of the sections that needed it the most. But the whole vineyard is quite steep, and yeah, it's kind of like, rolling hills, so water drains off pretty quick. And then if we get a storm, but then it breaks through for sunshine and wind, like the vineyard's dry the next day, and you can take the tractor out there and just not even, worry about mud or anything. So yeah, sometimes it's better if it rains, it pours actually, because then the water just kind of washes off and then it doesn't really just go deep into the soil and, really cause like issues with like, berry bursts and stuff like that. Sometimes down in sections of the vineyard where the water can stand a little more. Sometimes the ends of the rows where the vines might have a little more wet feet, you see more problems. But it's actually, yeah, that's not the bulk of the vineyard drains extremely well.
And we think
And
that also helps us. I mean, we can be prone to frost after bud break here. So we generally break bud, first week of April or so, maybe the second week of April at times. But, we can get frost after that. And so most years that wind has really been protective. It pushes the cold air down through the vines. It doesn't sit there. One year we got hit pretty hard. Not this year, but the year before we got hit pretty hard. So, but yeah, the wind is our friend for sure.
that is good. That is good. And now what is special to you about Cab Franc? Like if you were if you know I think Cab Franc has a rough go in this world. Either people, you're saying people are very familiar because of the popularity in North Carolina, but just in general, I think it gets a bad rap. People just don't know about it. So they think it's, I have people come up to me and they'll see the Cab Franc bottle and they'll say, oh, I'll have your cab. I'm like, oh, well, okay, but this isn't, cab. So what do you think is special about Cab Franc, and what do you think if I continue to promote Cab Franc as being more than a blending grape, what do you think the direction it needs to go in to get more popular?
Well, I just think it is such a good food wine. It just pairs so nicely with food, and I think that's the way that people will learn more about it. As if in restaurants they're offering that. I mean, we were in Atlanta over Thanksgiving, and we went to a wine bar, and in all honesty, I saw zero Cab Francs. Um, it's all Cab Sauv or Malbec or a few Tempernios or things like that, but no Cab Francs. So it's a great wine. You've tasted ours. For us, it's not a heavy wine. It's very enjoyable wine. It
Mhm.
got such nice fruit to it, and like I said, it just goes so nicely with food.
Yeah, and I see that all the time too. I'll go into a restaurant or something, and there's not a single Cab Franc on there, and
Right.
my husband literally has to like hold me down, in my seat. He's like, just let it go, just let it go.
Well, but I will tell you, there's a pretty iconic restaurant in North Carolina in the Raleigh area called the Angus Barn, and it is a wine spectator, 3-glass restaurant. They have a tremendous wine list. Our Cab Franc does beautifully there. So yeah, they are doing a good job, and people know.
Well, that's awesome to be in that wine spectator restaurant. So congratulations on that. Yeah, I think it needs to it's still a hand sell to people. And I think that some restaurants that may not have the Somm that's savvy, or it's just the business manager purchasing wine, they're staying away from something that's a hand sell. They rather just, do that.
Yeah.
So what do you think people, if I had to say how can they come visit you, what something about Jones von Drehle that you want people to know, what would be 1 or 2 things that you want people to know about Jones von Drehle?
That we're making great wine, that it's
I'll
all
attest to that.
that it's 100% estate, so you are getting a true taste of our terroir here, and it's a beautiful location right at Blue Ridge Mountains. I mean, yeah. We
And
have
so
a
go ahead, I'm
we have
sorry.
a outdoor amphitheater that provides beautiful music, bringing in artists from around the country. So yeah.
So I didn't ask about that. I see you have it's called the stage at Jones von Drehle.
Right.
So how big is it? Like, do you have, like you were talking,
It,
like
it's
concerts, like serious stuff going on
yeah,
there?
yeah. Our Labor Day concert was a band from Southern California, and it was good. This was our first year. I mean, we've just gotten it completed, and it fits right into the natural environment and the way the land lays. It's a natural amphitheater, so the sound quality is tremendous, and it's a beautiful site. We had one performer play on September 9th, and we thought it was going to rain, but it cleared up, and they are on stage. It's dark, the lights are on, and all of a sudden this beautiful, gigantic full moon rises over the back of the stage. So, I mean, it is a beautiful sight.
And can people purchase tickets for these concerts and then
Yeah,
buy wine while they're
absolutely.
watching the concert?
Absolutely.
And do you have like a wine club or anything
We
like that?
do. We do. We have a wine club, and really nice wine, good benefits. It's free to join. I mean, we make it pretty easy. You know, first dibs at everything we do here.
It cracks me up. I guess it shouldn't, but it does crack me up that I read some wine clubs and there's a fee to join. And then like you're buying their wine. And hey, kudos to them if they can get people to pay to just join a club. But I don't really understand that logic as a consumer. I'm joining your club. I'm guaranteeing I'm buying your wine, and you're charging me to just guarantee I'm buying your wine. So I'm
Well,
glad that it's free.
yeah. And people get choice from us. I mean, we do, one in the spring, one in the fall, and we give them a list of 10 wines, and they can choose whatever they want. But, I guess our perspective is, obviously our wine club is very important to us, but, when COVID came and the shutdown came, they really helped keep us alive. So, we have tremendous love and appreciation for our wine club.
That's nice. That's nice. And so how can people get their hands on this beautiful Cab Franc?
Well, they can go to our website and order straight off of our website, www.jonesvondrehle.com. And we can ship to some states. It's listed on there. We can't ship to every state in the country, but California is one we can ship to. So yeah, we distribute in North Carolina, so we don't go in terms of distribution to restaurants and stores outside of North Carolina.
And then if they want to come visit, what do they do?
Depending on where you are, you can fly into Charlotte, drive a little over an hour north, an hour and a half north, and yeah, come straight up I-77 like you're going to Virginia, and we're about 10 miles off the interstate. So, and there are places to stay all over. There's hotels and cabins and VRBOs and all kinds of places. So,
And by appointment, or do you do walk-ins also?
we do both.
Both.
We reservations, but we also accept walk-ins as long as we can. So, and every season's lovely. You know, you get a different look at the vineyard depending on the season. So,
Okay. And so when they're tasting, you said to mention the amphitheater is right there, but is there seating outside also? Is that like among the vines? They have the views of the vines?
yeah, we have a very large outdoor patio. We have some seating inside. We have a new reserve, a seated tasting room that we just opened in September. So there's a lot of options in terms of tasting. If you want to come and just sit outside and have a bottle and enjoy the music, music is very important to Chuck and picks every song on our playlist. And it's a wide variety of music. So yeah, it's really nice.
Well, excellent. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and for sharing your wine. I absolutely love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. I think that it can go with so many foods, and like Tanner said, maybe not that steak, but I don't really think of any Cab Franc going with the steak. Like, the Cab Sauv people can have that.
Yeah.
I think we have everything else, honestly. But so oh, go ahead, Tanner. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, yeah, thank you for rooting for Cab Franc. I think that it's just, it kind of needs its moment in the sun too. So I'm excited to see that you put all this together. And yeah, it's just, to me, Cab Franc, it's kind of like a wallflower more so compared to Cab Sauv. Cab Sauv is, out there trying to, be the center of attention. But yeah, thank you for looking at Cab Franc, because, you get to know him. There's a lot of depth there. So thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
been
thank
really
you.
fun to be able to join you and be a part of this event this year.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited that you signed up. Literally, when I saw you sign up, I got so happy. I really was, because it's easy to find Cab Franc in California, and it's there. And I was so happy to find that other regions were coming in and wanted to share their Cab Franc love. So thank you. And then, are you doing anything special on Sunday, actually, for Cab Franc Day?
Well, we're always promoting our Cab Franc, so we'll put up more on social media, but yeah.
Okay. So follow everybody, follow them on social media. It's Jones von Drehle. It's nice and easy to find them. There'll be links in here. And, I'm going to raise a glass and say thank you so much for this beautiful wine and for the Cab Franc conversation. Slancha.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.